Okay, I'm Ethan Schoonover. This is a demonstration of DEVONthink and how I used it to run a recent Yellow King RPG scenario. Um, Let me talk a little bit about all those words real quick. So, first of all, this is an application. It's a so-called kind of database or research application. That short description does not do it justice. It's used very heavily in academia, and researchers and historians like to use it. Writers, journalists. I have found it eminently useful for all sorts of general purpose writing activities, as well as writing and running role playing games. And if you're not familiar with the Yellow King role playing game, I heartily endorse it. It is by Pelgrane Press. It is based on the Gumshoe system, and it is. First of all, the Gumshoe system is a role playing game rule set which lets you simulate the solving of mysteries and solve mysteries. It's a very enjoyable system. And the Yellow King role playing game is based on a particular set of 19th century short stories. And it starts off in Belle Epoque Paris. And so if you like history and find the 19th century fascinating in general, as specifically the turn of the century in Paris, it's super fun to do that kind of research for me, and I really would endorse that whole game system. So, if you like research, boy, this is that that is a great game to pick up. Now, DEVONthink is one of these tools that I'm fairly, platform agnostic, but it's Mac only, as I may have mentioned. It is one of these tools that has kept me really using the Apple ecosystem because it is so unique and it's so powerful. And I kind of want to give you a taste of how I use it because it's fairly unique. Now, during this recent scenario that I ran it for 8 weeks, and I used two player-facing tools. One of them was Discord for audio and video and text chat, and then I also used Notion.so. And Notion.so is sort of like a collaborative wiki document, collaborative document system online. It's in some ways similar to DEVONthink. One of the limitations of DEVONthink is, although there are ways to share it with other people, it's really more of a single user thing. There are kind of multi-user options for it, but primarily it's like one person doing one thing or a couple of people using it at the same time. Whereas Notion let me do kind of wiki-like stuff with the players. So all the player-facing stuff took place in Discord and Notion. This is a tool that I used just for me, and I'll talk a little bit about all the different ways that I used it. So I guess I'll just sort of jump in and we'll demonstrate it and simulate some of the writing and game running activities. You can see here, so first of all, it's built around the idea of databases, which are just collections of files in this case. Files can be any format. They can be text or graphics, doesn't matter. I put text in here, plain text, rich text. I put in images, PNGs, JPEGs, Photoshop documents I put in here, Illustrator documents, doesn't matter. So we've got general stuff throughout. So I have in the Yellow King role-playing game sections, I've got all the rules, for instance, and I use these all the time when I'm playing. I will often open up, for instance, the main book here, which is titled Paris, and look up the rules. So, for instance, I might look up the rules about combat, and DEVONthink does a great job indexing stuff, and it's just real easy to jump through and find all the information. This is not that unusual. It's standard PDF stuff, but it's nice to just have it all in the same system. Another thing that I do is there are all the cards, all the shock and injury cards. So I'm getting into the very specific, game mechanics here. You're probably not going to be interested in this if, the details, if you're not really into the Yellow King role-playing game, which you should be. But some of this will be generally applicable for other games. So in Yellow King, we use shock and injury cards to when the players get hurt or when they have a traumatic event. And let's take a look at some of the shock cards here. So there's a lot of them. And sometimes it's hard for me to quickly grab the right one that I need. So what I do is I actually just use search. So for instance, if I'm searching for lungful of water, it's one of the injury cards, I can really easily bring that up. And I can then I could just drag the image over into Discord, or I could drag it into Notion, or I could copy paste it. And this makes my life really easy because it's just a quick text search to bring up any material. I have things like in images, I have like general Belle Epoque photos, and you can see here we've got things like here's some fancy costumes. Here we've got what might be on somebody's desk, all sorts of stuff like that. Then we've got maps, different maps I have of Paris and the underground and what have you, and cropped elements and stuff where I've added little annotations. So that just all lives here inside of the same quote-unquote database for inside of DEVONthink. Here's stuff that I added for Notion headers, different paintings, yellow sign from Pelgrane. So that's just to give you a taste. I mean, this is nothing unusual. Music can live in here as well. Yellow King RPG Suite from Pelgrane. You can play all that here as well and drag and drop it in elsewhere. Okay, so you've seen all the basics, right? Obviously we've got the basic information. Now let's go into the scenario that I ran. This was long and complicated, and there was a lot of writing behind it, and there was a lot of complexity during running it. This is actually the first scenario I've ever run in the Yellow King RPG. Kind of took on a life of its own. So inside of the scenario, which is here, the working title is Sister Sister, you can see I've got a lot of different sections. There's really three main sections. There are characters, locations, and there are scenes. And so, when I first started typing this out, I created this kind of scenario summary, and it's got things in there like what's the hook and what's the alien truth and what are the core clues and the secondary clues. And from all that, I then developed the different scenes that I would need and the different characters and the different locations. And what I wanted to do was I wanted like a sort of, this is like my Rolodex of all the characters. So I have a characters folder, and then inside that you can see there were a lot of GMCs they encountered, and game master or game moderator characters. And we've got just character after character. This character actually was a GMC and became a player at one point. We've got like Emile Clotilde here. We've got Lady Wilding, and we'll talk about Lady Wilding actually as a good example because she's one of the core characters. So Lady Wilding, an Englishwoman in Paris, and parent nobility and mysterious past. You know the drill. And what I did is in this general character folder here, so this is like this is not part of a specific scene. This is just general biographical information. I just typed in all the notes about her that I needed to run her as a character. And then I also got a bunch of source images about her. Here's a photograph of her, looking spooky and cool, with amazing hair. And let's see. Oh, here's a painting of her. There's actually a crop of the painting. And what else? Oh, we have an Ophelia painting here that she has in her house. Maybe she posed for that. We don't know. Let's see what else. Oh, we have a spy camera photo of her that one of the characters took. So all the stuff that's related to her, it all lives in her folder. And it doesn't matter. So I used her in many different scenes, but I consolidated all the information about her here. All right, so that's the Lady Wilding folder, lives inside the characters folder. Great. Oh, you can also see, by the way, I have like custom cards that I created. Those all live in the custom cards for this particular scenario. Now I have my locations folder. So for instance, Wilding Manor. I have information about Wilding Manor, which is where Lady Wilding lives. I have photos of it. I have photos of the interior. And I have a description and maybe some other surrounding material. So again, that's all specific to that location. And that's separate from Lady Wilding, because maybe Lady Wilding is somewhere else. She often is. She's a woman on the go. So let's take a look at some scenes. And I'm going to actually open up the scene where they meet Lady Wilding. So first of all, the scenes you can see here in the top with these blue groups here, I've got, and I'll get rid of this demo, and we'll actually recreate that. I've got 5 main sections: introduction, development, investigation, climax, and the choice. Climax was supposed to be the last one. Kind of makes sense, right? You have introduction, then things start to develop, then investigation gets hot and heavy, and then there's the climax, and the scenario kept going. So I made a 5th section, and that was the choice, which presented a dilemma to the characters. And each one of these sections had multiple scenes. And you can see, like, this is just, it was a good way for me to organize it. I might do it differently a little bit next time, I'm not sure. But things, it would have been unwieldy otherwise. Now let's take a look here at this scene meeting Lady Wilding, and you can see that inside of that scene I have some folders like characters and locations, and then I have some other information, like here's like a big scene about a chessboard, for instance, and I wrote all sorts of information and some description that I really wanted to nail. And so that was all there. And this is all just plain text, by the way, and I'm going to talk a little bit. You can see that there's some links in this text, and I will talk about how those links work in just a second. But let's talk about the characters. So you can see here we've got 3 characters referenced: Emile Clotilde, Lady Wilding, and the Hound. And we have some locations: Wilding Manor. And we just saw those a second ago in the characters and locations folder. And this is what is super cool. These are the same folders. So these aren't copy pasted. Any changes that I make here, so if I go into this Lady Wilding folder and I say like, oh, I'm going to make a new note here, and this will be like notes on the character interactions, okay? And I'll say like Anna took a spy photo of Lady Wilding on Sunday. Okay, good to know that happened. Now this was all done inside of inside of this scenario, or inside of this scene, I should say. So that was in Climax, meeting Lady Wilding. Inside of characters, there's Lady Wilding. And you can see notes on PC interactions. But because of the way that DEVONthink works, this is also now over here in the actual Lady Wilding folder under characters. So any scene where I reference Lady Wilding and I have that Lady Wilding folder, this is going to show up. That is so great for me. It's all consolidated, and let me talk a little bit about how that works, and also about a couple of the key features of DEVONthink and what make it really useful. So I'm going to make a new section here, and we'll call this 0 demo. And I'm going to go into this, and I'm going to create a new group, and we'll call this scene 0. Welcome to Paris. All right. And inside of scene 0, we'll go ahead and I'll make just a new markdown text. Markdown text is just plain text, but with some, it responds to special markdown characters. And we'll call this welcome to Paris description. Okay, and I'll say, let's see, characters are lounging in Eric Satie's apartment. And Lady Wilding knocks on the door. Okay, so Lady Wilding, you notice as soon as I typed that, it actually turned into a link. And when I typed Eric Satie, nothing happened because I don't have a character, any sort of information about Eric Satie. So Lady Wilding, if I click on that, it actually jumps over to Lady Wilding's information. Now, if I want to, I could reveal the entire Lady Wilding folder, and I'm just going to press Command R, and that's going to jump to the Lady Wilding folder, and I can look at all that information really quickly. So it's really convenient to jump around inside of DEVONthink and just move between different groups, different folders, and what have you. So as you saw, we're inside of this, I made this demo group, we're inside of this scene, and we have a single document, which is Welcome to Paris. And I automatically, just typing plain text, it automatically starts to link to other documents in the database automatically. Love it. This is my favorite feature. Okay, so let me give you an example about how that works more specifically, though. If I go over to characters, and you can see I said I have no Eric Satie group right now. So I'm going to make an Eric Satie group. And I'll open that up. Oops, not like that. And double click on it. There we go. And let's just drag in a picture of Eric Satie. There that is. And maybe we'll put in some sheet music of Vexations or one that looks a little bit cooler. There we go. And maybe I will try to grab some information about him. And I will I'll make a new markdown text. And we'll call this one Eric Satie. Just put in some basic biographical information, his name, birth, death, how old he is in 1895, some basic information, and it says composed Vexations. You notice, by the way, that Vexations is already a link here. Even I just pasted this text in, But if I click on it, it'll actually link to this document right there because that is the name of that document. So it just does that. That's the basic, wiki link functionality of DEVONthink in action. You really don't have to do anything; just works very conveniently and usually automatically. So let's go back and look at the scene that we had before, which was in demo, scene, and welcome to Paris description. And now you can see Eric Satie is a link. And if I click on that, it's actually going to go to this group. And maybe that's what I want, or maybe I want it to jump directly to the description. Generally, for me, my preference is go directly to the description. So what I'll do is I'll right click on that group and I'll say, or I just click on it. And then over here on the right, it says exclude from wiki linking. And now if I go back to this description that we wrote, welcome to Paris, and I click on Eric Satie, it will jump right to the next available document that is available to be wiki linked, which is that text file. Okay, so that's cool. This is Eric Satie information. Yep, that works nicely. But what if I say something like Satie is busy playing piano? Okay, and you notice it doesn't link to the word Satie. Okay, that's because, let's jump over to Eric Satie here and look at this document. That's because I have to say, well, there are other ways I refer to him. So maybe he's got a nickname. Or in this case, I'm just going to say, well, it's okay. On the right-hand side, I'm going to say in the aliases, sometimes I might refer to him just as Satie. And now if I go back and I look at our scene 0 and I look at Welcome to Paris, you can see that now the word Satie is also linked. And I do this, for instance, the Hound here, Khufu. You can see I call it Hound. I have dog as an alias, Khufu as an alias, as well as the full description, the Hound, Khufu. So any way that I refer to this particular creature, it will, or the common ways that I will refer to it, it will link to it. So I can say like, outside waits a dog. And the characters don't know yet that the dog is the Hound. In fact, it is Lady Wilding's familiar. And I can click on that and it opens that up. So that is how I wrote all of the material for this particular scenario. It goes really quickly with DEVONthink because of this. I'm able to just kind of tap out this content and link to material that I have, whether or not it's a location or one of the characters or any other material that I have. This wiki linking makes it super easy. Now, this scene has a couple characters in it. We already have Eric Satie, and we have Lady Wilding. So I'm going to make a group, and I'm going to call it characters. I can also make like a locations group. So I'll jump into characters here, and I would like to have the information about Lady Wilding and Eric Satie in here as well, because I like to have it two-hand in the scene, so I don't have to hunt around and look through the nav bar on the left. Again, the wiki links help tremendously with this, but another way that I can do that is I can drag Eric Satie over here, and instead of just having it be a simple drag and drop, which would move it, so if you see like I just dropped it and it moved out of the characters list here, I'll undo that move. What I'm going to do is move it over, but I'm going to hold down Command and Alt on the Mac keyboard, and I will drop it, and it is now what is called a replicant. So it's actually in two places. It is both here on the left-hand side under characters, but it is also under the characters in this scene, and it's the same folder. So any changes I make to Eric Satie here inside of the scene, any additions I make or anything I remove. So for instance, if I remove one of the sheets here, if I say let's move this to, whoops, cancel, stop that. If I move this to the trash, well, I'll do that with the delete key, like this, delete. Okay, and now let's go up here and we'll look at the Eric Satie folder, and you can see it's also missing now from there because they are the exact same folder. So anything I add, remove, edit, change, it will be reflected in both places. And for me, that was really useful because, for instance, characters here, Lady Wilding, she's all over the place. She's in so many different scenes. So I want to make sure that I've got the current information for her everywhere, and it's all the same. So let's see, we'll look at Welcome to Paris. Oops, I'll move this back over there. And welcome to Fair Subscription. So I'm just gonna leave it at that, I think, for now. But you can see that it's really easy to link stuff in DEVONthink. It's really easy to have replicants and consolidate information right under my fingertips where I need it. Sometimes I would do the same thing for cards. So for instance, I might take a card like this, Bad to the Bone, and I would just drag this over to this scene, for instance, as a replicant, and now that's over there as a card that I have access to really quickly should I need it during this particular scene, because I know that they're going to have a combat or something like that. I hope that was kind of interesting, maybe a little long, but thanks for sticking with it. It's a really powerful tool for doing role-playing games, especially for something that is very research-driven or character-driven like this, where you're doing a lot of custom work. And I would encourage anybody who's on a Mac at least to pick it up, take a look at it. It's not, I wouldn't say it's cheap, but it's worth it, and you can use it for a ton of stuff. So that's my plug for using DEVONthink to run the Yellow King role-playing game. Hope you enjoyed it. Please reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at Ethan Schoonover, and I'm happy to talk. I hang out in the Pelgrane Discord in the Yellow King channel a fair amount, and hope to talk to you there. Bye.